Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Have we got sound? Yay. Hello, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. Looks like that channel is operable this morning. That's kind of nice. September the 6th. Sunday, September the 6th. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon, west coast of the United States. I'm Robert Beatty. This is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community. You can get two broadcasts today. There's another one this evening with Candle Summers. I'll speak about that partway through our gathering. We will do probably a 45-minute meditation now after a poem and a reminder of the refuges. And then Jim Dalton, the wild, white-haired, maned man you saw a few moments ago, will do some conscious movement, and then I'm going to be giving a Dharma talk today on equanimity. I think it's a time in our collective lives where equanimity is pretty important. So in honor of equanimity, a poem, this may be one of the top 10 in Dharma circles, from Rumi, 13th century, The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning there's a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. She may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This human being is a guest house. Every morning there is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I want to do something I haven't done on Zoom before. Is anybody here for the first time? Would you raise your hand and I'll scan through the screen? Nobody on page 1. No, I'm on page 2. Anybody here for the first time? 1, 2. Hi. Anybody else? That's Sherry. And page 2. Anybody there? No. Page 3 is the lurkers. Okay. Welcome. This is a modern form of an ancient chant. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. What is worth taking refuge in? possibly stable in this world. The older I get and the longer I live, the more I guess I get the rug pulled out from underneath me by life. I guess comes to mind right now to mention that I've been in contact with Paige and Adrian, Dharma teachers in this lineage, through Ruth Dennison, Paige, who's in Calgary, both of them with her father, who is passing away. Looks like he has maybe another day or two or three. They're sitting with him, and he's coming and going in and out of consciousness. Even our parents go away in the end, our children. So where to take refuge? I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Praise and blame, gain and loss, sickness, health, success, failure, beginnings, endings. These are the vicissitudes of life, the challenges of life. We try awfully hard to create lives which have only one of the polarities, and the universe exists in polarities, matter and antimatter, light and dark, hot and cold. We are students of the Dharma. Students of what is. And we're not primarily, maybe even not even tertiarily, academic students of what is. We're actually explorers of the highest order. We're scientists. using the scientific method, we have an N of 1. Our experimental group is 1, and it is ourselves. My teacher Munindra in India a long time ago said, I think many times, you come here saying you want to understand the human mind, you want to study the human mind. Well, sit down, pay attention, you have one. And so that's what we do here. We sit down and pay attention inwardly. We are carrying out an experiment. The experiment has some hypotheses. They can be worded as questions. Is it true that nothing lasts? Is it really true? And how would it change my behavior if I really knew it to be true? How much extra anxiety and suffering could go away if I knew that no matter how hard I try, I won't find in this lifetime a stable place to camp? How much more loving could we be if we really knew that our loved ones are a blessing today? The second hypothesis, the Buddha called it dukkha. And it's that to the degree we identify with the separate self and its desires, we will suffer. Is that true? We can find out if it's true through our experiment and discovering, does our meditation actually lead us to suffer less and less? And the third beautiful hypothesis, literally translates anatta as non-soul, no soul. Is it true that we never really find a self? We find something. Or maybe we could put it, we find everything. But this self that we work so hard to create and cherish and take care of and strengthen, do you notice how often yours falls apart? One day confident, the next day anxious, and so on. So we set off on this inward journey. Come home to the body. The body, which we usually think of as a vehicle that we use to take us places and do things. What if we really started paying attention to the body? It's alive, isn't it? It's alive, and there's warmth and coolness and pressure from the legs and the buttocks and the hands. And the face. And it breathes. This body, which is comprised of borrowed elements from the earth, a lot of water, let's take up mindfulness of in-breathing and out-breathing. Each breath comes into being and then disappears. It has a lifetime. On our journey of exploration, we will discover thoughts, memories, plans, moods, emotions, personality stories, anxieties, remorse, guilt, shame, joy, delight, compassion. It's all us. And so we sit here with great devotion to the present moment. One truth of meditation is that we're always starting. We're always beginning. Every time the mind wanders, there is awakening. And then there's the choice. What shall I do next? What karmic seed shall I plant? And we become profoundly interested in the minute details of the breath. In the minute details of this present moment. This present moment which is exactly as it is. There are times when it's very helpful to use noting, to make a little quiet word note on in-breathing, rising, rising, falling, falling. When awakening to the mind wandering, noting wandering, wandering. Returning, returning. If you're following if you're attending to the breath at the nostrils, it could be breathing in, out, out, in, out, out. If your mind tends toward worry, the note would simply be worrying, worrying. Or worry, worry. We don't use much of the mind's attention and energy for this noting, but enough to help orient. And coming home, again and again and again and again. This human being is a guest house. Every moment there's a new arrival. A wandering mind, a mind that's concentrated, a mind that's in struggle or a mind that's at ease, a mind luminous with love and compassion and sympathetic joy, or a mind contracted into hate and fear, jealousy, anxiety. Welcome and entertain them all. Each guest may be clearing you out for some new delight. We are stopping the war, putting down the battle, abiding in spacious, mindful awareness and equanimity. Pleasure and pain come in their waves and pass away. And this equanimity rests in love, in there being room for everything. And we live in community with other beings, other humans. Please let's add on the in-breath some blessing phrase for yourself. May I know great equanimity. May all beings be equanimous. May I be loving, may all beings be loving, on the in-breath and out-breath. May I be compassionate with my pain, on the in-breath. May others be compassionate with their pain, on the out-breath. Let your heart and body be the body of the Buddha, or the body of Kuan Yin, or Tara, or Mother Kali, the body of Jesus, or any archetypal figure who represents for you great love, great wisdom, great compassion. Feel the aliveness of the surface of your body as that loving presence. Rest into the beauty of your being. And bringing now, please, awareness to the body as it sits here. Notice the contact of your body with the chair or the cushion. Notice the miracle of your aliveness. We take it for granted, but then we can turn toward it and notice the life in your hands. Utterly miraculous. Notice the mood, whatever it is. Pleasant, unpleasant, ecstatic or extraordinarily painful. That familiar old ball of loneliness that you carry in your heart. Wishing things were different. Bring love to it all. Bring equanimity to it. This is the life of this moment. And please now, bringing awareness to the eyes, the face. And notice the effort that's involved in opening the eyes. Seeing. And then seeing someone. Pick a picture on the screen. Pick someone you don't know. One thing you know is that their life is composed of opposites. Up and down, pleasure, pain, gain, loss, sickness, health, fame, disrepute. Remembering this, how can we be anything but loving? Doesn't take a lot, does it? Just a moment to pause and get outside of our thinking. Of course this person wants to be loved, needs to be loved. Of course this person goes through the world with a neurotic mind. I mean, of all the absurd things, self-hatred and self-judgment is kind of normal in our culture. That's really, talking about pandemics, malware. That song was from Plum Village. It's Lauren Kinnersley. Plum Village is the center where Thich Nhat Hanh lives and has created a beautiful environment for decades now. So glad you're here. I feel saner than when I came to sit down. That's always a good sign. Saner, is that the word? I feel more relaxed. I feel a certain anxiety about getting it all done, which is really diminished. I'm not going to get it all done. I'll have some bits of it done. Well, I have a few announcements. Please bear with me. The first one is, ta-da! There it is. Tonight, live on Zoom, Candle Summer, 6:30 to 8:30. Check it out. This is Candle's first Sunday night teaching, and I am sure it will be a very heartfelt, beautiful, and caring opportunity to be together. And then there's fall classes, my class on the Eightfold Path of the Buddha, is coming up soon. When does it start? It starts Wednesday, September 16th. That's a week from Wednesday. And Doyle Banks' class on skillful peach and not skillful peach. That's funny. We have ripe peaches on the dining room table. Saturday, 9/12. That starts very soon. It's going to fly. There were 13 or 14 people in it as of the other day. And Doug's class, the Basics of Mindfulness, is coming up for the fall. And I think that... Jim, you're doing your Monday nights again, correct?
Correct. And Rumi's usually a guest.
Right. Great. And I guess I want to be sure to mention this. I'm sitting here in my exquisite little house. This afternoon I think I'm going to be able to get some moldings on. It's very close to completion. And it's here because of you, because of the kindness and generosity that came from this community in a GoFundMe campaign. And every time I step in, I pause. There's a beautiful stone at the door, and there's beautiful plantings around the outside. And every time I come in, I pause on the step. Maybe not for long, but long enough to stop and reflect upon the privilege and the beauty of this little broadcast studio. It's just great. So I salute you in my gratitude. And you wouldn't know this because you can't hear it, but the construction project continues. When I was broadcasting from the tent, we had lots of construction noise, which wasn't a catastrophe. We also had the birds. That was nice. I missed them, actually, the crows. But this is much more stable. And then finally, I think I have a thank you that for the response to our middle, three-quarter way through the year fundraising campaign and the invitation of you to practice generosity and opening your hearts. As of 2 or 3 days ago, we had 19, was it 19? It might have been 28. We have a significant number of people who are contributing monthly for the first time. And that's really our goal at this point, is to build up the base of support for PIMC. And 11 or 12 people had increased their monthly contribution. And that's really great. We're moving toward closing by the end of the year, a $30,000 gap in the budget, and we're really on track to do that. So I applaud and salute you for taking the opportunity to practice being generous to this, what would I say, absolutely worthy cause. And particularly in this time of COVID and political instability, we need some place where we're being nourished and supported to stay calm and to be loving. And so your contributions to PIMC are very much that. Can you hear police sirens now? Oh, they're coming. Wow, that's interesting. That gets through. Huh. I always think when I hear those sirens that somebody's life is changing. And actually, what I see is someone in an ambulance having a heart attack. That's what I usually imagine. And may they be surrounded by love and be okay. So, Mr. Jim, would you be so kind as to lead some movement?
All right. If you want to join me, move away from your chair. Put your hands up in the air.
Make no sudden moves.
So I'm going to step away from my chair. See if I can get lined up long enough to see part of my legs, part of my
Those of you on
something.
Facebook and YouTube, I encourage you to join us on Zoom, and you can find the Zoom link by going to robertbeatty.com. And if you go to robertbeatty.com, let me do it here, and I'll see. So there it is. Here's a picture of me in meditation, and then a copy of my book. And then teachings on YouTube, watch now. That's not what I'm thinking. Join Robert live online. If you scroll down a little bit and then you click on the join here, that will take you to a place where you can fill in your name and email, and then you'll have the link. So do please join us, and you could now be participating live with Jim as he does his movement practice.
And rise. We have impermanent sensations. Some sensations as we sink, and then they fade away as this resisting gravity develops. The feeling of surrender to gravity. And the feeling of rising away from the floor. And it's not just the knees and the hips that move, but the breath will expand, the whole nervous system responds to that lifting and sinking. And we know when we're down far enough that there's going to be a new pattern. And we know when we're up to the end, there's a new pattern. So we're constantly looking forward. We're moving forward. We're not thinking forward, but this time next time we sink, we'll let the arms rise. So what's forward for the arms is forward. It's a different forward for the legs. The legs are sinking, the arms are rising. We can't think all that. I can't say all that at one time. But the body knows how to organize all of that. Sinking, rising, rising, sinking. The words become more and more irrelevant. And it's just the sensation of flowing. One way of thinking about it is that we're leaving the past behind. But another way of thinking about it is that we're moving forward constantly. We let go of the past and move into the next movement. Pausing. Even when we're pausing, we're moving into stillness. Is there more? More stillness? How does it feel? It's like this. And it's also like this. Moments of stillness. Letting the hands separate on the in-breath and come back together. There's a point of stillness where there's no forward, no expansion, no contraction. But out of that stillness, a new contraction, in this case, starts. Then there's a moment of stillness and expansion. Part of the feel of impermanence is that opening forward. Opening forward.
Okay.
It's like this. The whole body knows what moving forward means.
That's not what it is.
Lungs wanting more air. Part of it is lungs wanting to release air. But those are just words. Drop the words and feel this subtle moving forward to the next, to the next, to the next. We can be present with simple awareness for the next. No words, just we can change the direction. Press up and push down. Pausing at the top, pausing at the bottom, and then release towards the center. And then the opposite. Reaching up, pushing down. It's like this. Coming together. Passing each other. Separating, moving apart. Forget the words. Be with the next one. The next. This. Each hand knows where the other hand is. The hips reorganize. The shoulders reorganize. Letting the hands lead. Changing the balance. The balance absorbs the next and the next and the next. And reorganize. The words disappear. It's just like this. And pressing away, sinking, coming to stillness. Stillness is like this. Gratitude for the new energy coming in for the in-breath. Breathing in is like this. Breathing out is like this. Feeling the calmness and ease. Breathing rhythm. Healthy lungs, healthy knees, healthy arms. We sink and expand inside, come overhead and down the center. It's like this, lifting, surrendering to gravity, lifting. Surrender. And once more. Back to stillness through the whole body. Gratitude for another chance to practice. Bringing awareness to the simple things. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, dear Jim. I sometimes forget to remind, my book is out, Mindfulness for a Happy Life. The book is one of the two texts for the Eightfold Path class, particularly because of one of the chapters in here, which is the chapter on the Eightfold Path. The chapter in here, it isn't even very long. What is it, 20-some pages? But it's a distillation of the entire path. It's 92, so it's 32 pages. It's a distillation of the Eightfold Path, and it's the relationship of its parts to each other. So, enjoy if you get it. I want to speak today about equanimity. It's not a commonly used word. People often, wonder what the heck does it mean? And it has a very central role in Buddhist practice. I'm prompted to speak about it from yesterday. I had some time with my dear friend Larry Thornton Jones, who some or many of you know, actually. He's been a friend for over 40 years. No, that's not true. It's 37 years. We met on a TV program, a town hall program, as fathers who were staying home with our children. A revolutionary idea back then. Anyways, we were parting. I said, Larry, I don't know what to talk about tomorrow. What should I talk about? And he said, well, given how unstable the world is, and given how much fear there is, why not talk about equanimity? Why not talk about how to find a little boat of stability, or maybe a great boat of stability in the human mind and heart in order to sail through these very turbulent waters, these difficult times because of COVID-19. I'm on such familiar terms with it, I call it COVID. I don't need the whole name. It's like being on familiar terms, such familiar terms with Fred Meyer that we call it Freds. So I thought about that and thought about my own struggles for equanimity in this time, because of course COVID just adds on top of this enormous instability politically, and the absurdity and insanity and even obscenity of so much of what's happening in the political sphere. And it's very destabilizing and frightening. So when that gets added to the wounding and instability and destabilization we had as small children, we can get pretty freaked out. So I want to put equanimity in a context or two, maybe. I just realized I can ask for a show of hands. How many of you could name the 4 Brahma Viharas? Okay. Well, that's so helpful. Goodness, there can be more two-way here than I realized. How cool is that? So, we know lots about emotions. We know lots about fear and anger and sadness and despair and depression. And we don't speak so often about the positive emotive capacities that we have, the positive valence of feelings. And there's a teaching, a practice, a way of being, which is known as the Brahma Viharas, the abode of the gods. And this can sound kind of weird, the abode of the gods. And of course, anything in another language can have lots of cachet to it, but what is it about? And so the notion is this, that when we escape from identification with this, to the degree we escape from identification with the small, separate, time-bound self, there are some states that help that happen, and also states that mature and blossom as that happens. And those states start with something very familiar, which is love. The term that's commonly used is loving kindness. And it's a term, the loving kindness term was created by a group of women, mostly women, in England in the late 1890s when they were translating the Pali texts. And they felt very uncomfortable with the word love, so they created a new word, loving kindness. In the Catholic world, it had existed for a long time as agape. There's several different kinds of love, filial love, and so on. I forget them. But it's love that the best definition I ever heard of came from Achan Sumedho. And he said, in love, there's room for everything. It's not, I love you because you're like this. It's, I love you, or I am in love, in the state of love with you. You're allowed to be you. It's one of the wonderful things about falling in love. We have a period where we project on the other tremendously, and it's very heavenly. It's perfect in a way, because we're overlooking that which eventually, if we stay in relationship, we will have to deal with when we fall out of love, and then have to learn to love one another. And I'm remembering a conversation I had in India a long time ago. I was with a couple who were saying to my then wife and I, well, you do it in a very difficult way in America. You fall in love, and then you fall out of love, and then you have to learn how to love each other. We have our parents pick out someone who's appropriate for us, and we can skip the whole falling in love thing and all the difficulties of that, and we start off by learning how to love one another. We do things in different odd ways, don't we? So, love meaning there's room for everything, and it's a state we all know, and we can cultivate it. There's a second one, when love meets suffering. There's a natural, the Buddha called it the natural trembling of the heart when love meets suffering, and we call it compassion. And compassion has with it, how can I help? How may I help alleviate this suffering? And there's an image that always comes to mind when I speak of this, which is again from a long time ago. How long would it be? 34 years, maybe 35 years. I had bought my son his first bicycle, and we were riding on a paved trail in Tryon Creek Park, and he crashed. And he crashed hard enough that he had a road rash on his elbow, one elbow, and his knee. And he was just, there's that first moment of, and then he was just crying, sobbing in pain. And I was a ski patrolman and mountain rescue person and lots of first aid training. But the first aid he really needed was, I zipped up to him and stayed very calm, put my bike down, And then when I saw there was nothing really broken, I took him in my arms and I held him. And I let him have his emotions, and I didn't even tell him you're going to be fine. It was just, I'm here. You're here, nothing's broken. And then I did something I'd learned in Ericksonian hypnotherapy training, which was we were both looking at the blood on his knee, and I said, "Wow, look at that! You have great red blood. That's the perfect color, and that's what's going to heal your wound." Compassion. I couldn't fix him, but I could provide for him a container for his freaked outness by being not freaked out. Compassion. And of course, we can practice and must practice compassion for ourselves. There's one of those attitudinal statements that you've heard me say many times if you've been around for any time, which is, I aspire, or when I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, I aspire to hold myself in sweet, loving compassion. Sometimes we're pretty harsh with ourselves when we're hurting. It's like, oh God, I should be over this by now. Or, we do unto ourselves what was done unto us as children, and sometimes it's pretty harsh. So we can learn to be with ourselves in pain and not flinch and not criticize, but allow. Love meets suffering and converts to compassion. Love meets happiness and success. Love meets a joyful person in oneself or in others. And it converts into mudita, sympathetic delight. And it's the opposite of jealousy. And there's a phrase about it, which is, may this person's happiness and success and well-being, may it expand and continue. So we can be very present with another person or ourselves and delight when the vicissitudes, the pleasure, pain, gain, loss, and so on, the polarities, when they're in the polarity of happiness or success or ease or comfort, some profound satisfaction of some need we've had for a long time or a longing. Why not take delight in that? Just an intuition about it's not that we take delight in the suffering of the other person, but we're willing to be intimate with it. We're willing to be close to it in compassion, not sympathy, not vibrating at the same frequency as the person, but I'm willing to be close to this person and experience in their suffering, in their pain. And I'm willing and able to be close to and present with this person in their delight and joy. And then the fourth Brahma Vihara, the fourth of these states, is called equanimity. And it's really crucial that as one is meditating, especially if you're meditating enough to go deeper, if you're meditating enough for stress management purposes, of, a few minutes a day, or kind of a little bit of psychological, emotional improvement, then it's less important. But if we really start to delve in and discover, number one, how much suffering we have in our own hearts, how much trauma we bring with us from the past, and what happens is we start seeing the suffering in the world. And it's my favorite English word. I'm reading my book. I have another 20 pages to read for it to go on Audible. And I discovered 4 places so far I use my favorite word, which is ubiquitous. Ubiquitous. I just love that word. And it is everywhere. It's everywhere in our own lives, and it's everywhere all around us. That because life is constantly changing from pleasure to pain and gain and loss and so on, we human beings are, we suffer. So equanimity. If we don't have equanimity, we'll have to shut ourselves down or resort to intoxication or just go numb. And I looked up, one of my favorite Buddhist teachers of all time was a man called Thera. I met him. I did my first retreat in India, a 10-day retreat, and then I went to Sri Lanka and went to the Buddhist Publication Society. Richard Abhaya Sekara was our host. And then he told my girlfriend and I about an old monk that lived in the woods. And we couldn't drive there, but we could take a taxi and then walk maybe half a mile. And so we did that. And this lovely old man met us, and he made tea and gave us cookies. And then he asked me about meditation, what meditation is. And I told him. And I think what he was doing was really asking what's being taught on those particular retreats. But I didn't realize that I was sitting in a room with one of the most highly revered meditator translators of the time. And anyway, he was a manifestation of loving kindness and compassion. So this is a little article by him which is available on Access to Insight. And his name is Thera. I heard his name was. He was a good friend of Carl Jung. He was German, and he would sometimes go and spend time in Germany with Jung. So he was an amazing guy. So this is the first paragraph or two. Equanimity, equal. Equanimity is a perfect, unshakable balance of mind rooted in insight. Looking at the world around us and looking into our own hearts, we see clearly how difficult it is to attain and maintain balance of mind. Looking into life, we notice how it continuously moves between contrasts. Rise and fall, success and failure, loss and gain, honor and blame. We feel how our heart responds to all of this with happiness and sorrow, delight and despair, disappointment and satisfaction, hope and fear. These waves of emotion carry us up and fling us down. No sooner do we find rest than we are in the power of a new wave again. How can we expect to get a footing on the crest of the waves? How can we erect the building of our lives in the midst of this ever restless ocean of existence, if not on the island of equanimity? I was just reminded of the time when Ruth Dennison had told me, she gave me the first check for $10,000 and said, "Here, start a center." And I went, I don't know how to do that. But the ball was put, the die was cast. And then we brought it up with the community, and the community split. There were some people who were adamantly opposed. If we're going to have windows, if we're going to wash windows, we should wash the windows of the poor, not create another set of windows to wash. And Robert, you have an edifice complex. And this is not uncommon. This happens when communities move to getting a building. And then we got the building, and then it was it was not easy. And I wrote to one of my monk friends, Achan Pasano, and said, "This is really hard. There are people who really like me because of this, and there are people who literally hate me, and they're all letting me know about it. And it's this roller coaster of pleasure and pain is just terrible." And he wrote back, short little email: pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain. Up, down, up, down, up, down, until you get sick of the ride and just get off. And he didn't mean get off the task, the worthy task of creating a meditation center. He meant get off the ride of identifying with and reacting to the pleasure and pain. Praise and blame. You're the best Dharma teacher, and oh, you're a horrible person, and I wish I'd never met you. And oh, I feel great, I'm terrific, and oh, now I'm bad. And it's endless. So, the beginning of this says, equanimity is a perfect, unshakable balance of mind, rooted in insight. What insight? And Nyanaponika suggests there's two major insights. And they themselves are a polarity. There's the one where one acknowledges there is a self of sorts, and the other one where one is really taking refuge in there is not a self. So, on the one hand, one way one can reflect to bring meaning into the up, down, is all beings are the recipients of their own karma. That, at least to some significant to some significant extent, the experiences that we have arise out of our previous actions. Now, it's not everything, because there's national karma, and there's geologic karma, and there's financial karma. The world is very complex, and the karmic notion is that there is some part of this that we have control over, or that we've been planting seeds for a long time. And the Buddhist model says we've been planting seeds for thousands of lifetimes. I've no idea about that. For sure, I know that's the doctrine, but I don't know that. But I do know that many of the experiences that I have come from seeds I've planted that then come to fruition. And one of the things they say is that we plant a karmic seed and then it's gone. It's not gone from the universe, but it's gone from us, and then it can come back at any time in its own repercussions. So, a way to make meaning of the vicissitudes is to say, well, this is all arising, or at least a great percentage, a great chunk of this is arising from my actions in the past, and therefore, if I'm treated badly, maybe it's important just to accept, I'm being treated badly, or if I'm having some despairing mood, or if something's not going well, one way to make meaning of it is okay, I had a hand in the planting of this. I will behave myself now, and I will plant wholesome seeds into the future. How shall I respond to this circumstance, to this vipaka, this flowering of an old karma as vipaka, the context I find myself in? How shall I respond? And the notion is, I want to respond as lovingly, kindly, generously, with as much equanimity as I can, because I know these seeds will bear their fruits. And another reflection that's part of the understanding of it, this particular polarity from the law of karma, is reflect on your goodness. When times are tough, and this is a practice, think about all the good things you've done in your life. And we can practice this on a daily basis, which is before you go to bed tonight, or prepare for this. During today, when you do something kind or generous or loving or wise, notice it. And then when you go to bed tonight, before you go to sleep, think back over your list of 5 or 10 or 2 acts of kindness. And let that be the thoughts you go to sleep with. Very different from, let's watch the news before we go to sleep and notice the latest insanity. But how did I act today that was conducive to the well-being of myself and others? So that's one of the insights, which is this process is malleable. I have some input into it and it's meaningful. And then the other insight, which is the one that I find greatest solace in, is the insight that comes to us from insight meditation. The insight of anatta, of not soul or not self. And I had a big aha about this some time back. It was during Gulf War II, I think it was. The Air Force, you remember shock and awe? The Air Force was hunting, not Osama, it was, what was his name in Iraq? Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein, incidentally, who we know was terribly traumatized as a child. He saw people killed in front of him when he was a very small child. So he was a damaged psychopath. Anyway, they were hunting him and they were dropping these big bombs into the bomb shelters where they thought he might be, hoping to decapitate the regime. And they dropped one of them into a bomb shelter that was filled with, it was a lot, maybe 150 or more women and a comparable number of children. And I was, even now I feel a little teary, I was so upset by that. It's just, how can they do that? And I was so powerless. And then, I don't know what shifted. I was sitting in meditation. And it suddenly came clear to me that there was nothing I could do about that. And the realization was also, this kind of thing is happening all the time. And then this is the part that's kind of, people can misunderstand. It is the way of the world. And this can really be misunderstood, those women and children were going to die at some point, and they left early. And the fact is, we're all going to die. And we have a dance we do, and then we disappear. And if I move to being upset about the places where the news focuses in on tragedies, then there's a way that I am indulging a self that has outrage and thinks things should be different. And so anyway, in equanimity, there is the recognition, and this is the way it words itself for me. Oh, this is the way of the world. In Al-Anon language, it would be, I came to believe that I was powerless over the addiction of my loved one. I came to believe that I was powerless over the insanity of the world. Now, this doesn't mean we don't simultaneously feel compassion and caring, and maybe that we do something to try to change the circumstance. But we can do it wound up like a pretzel and filled with response and reactivity to what's happening. Or we can fall into wisdom and love and compassion and recognize this is how it happens. This happens. I'm reminded right now of a story from the time of the Buddha where, let me check the time. Oh, good. Where one of the Buddha's cousins, who lived relatively nearby in another city, was promised a princess bride from Kapilavastu, which was the city where the Buddha grew up. And for some reason, the people of Kapilavastu, the powers that be, tried to trick him and sent him a common girl. Now, no doubt this is a 13-year-old or so. And he found out about it and he became incensed. And he decided, he no doubt was encouraged to do so, that he'd been shamed, so he had to take a war to Kapilavastu. And the Buddha heard that he was coming, and he went out and sat under a little scrawny tree, and the cousin came and encountered him. And the cousin said, well, Lord Buddha, what are you doing here? It's very hot. Why are you sitting under that little tree that provides no shade? And the Buddha replied, dear cousin, sitting here and being in your presence and knowing of the presence of my loved ones in Kapilavastu cools my heart. Now why don't you cool your heart and go home? And he did. And then he got all riled up again a second time, and the Buddha stopped him in a similar way again. And on the third time, the Buddha realized he could not intervene. And the archaeologists tell us that there's a city, the ruins of a city, Kapilavastu I, the original Kapilavastu, which probably, given its size, housed 60,000 people. And the story is that this cousin came and created havoc and killed a lot of people. Now, what did the Buddha do with that? My guess is that he was in equanimity and realizing this is the way human beings act. So, here's a quote from Nyanaponika. To establish equanimity as an unshakable state of mind, one has to give up all possessive thoughts of mind, beginning with little things from which it is easy to detach oneself, and gradually working up to possessions and aims to which one's whole heart clings. I just thought of another practice I did. Now, this is a long time ago, too. During the time of Ronald Reagan and Caspar Weinberger, who was referred to as the Prince of Darkness because he wanted to use nukes in several circumstances. But I had strong visceral reactions to these guys, and I created a practice, which was on this wall of my meditation room. I had pictures of my loved ones, my beloveds. Ruth Dennison was on the altar. And over here, 8 by 10, 2, I had Caspar Weinberger and Ronald Reagan. And so I would maybe sit for half an hour, and do my practice. And then I would turn to my loving kindness wall, and there they were. There were my beloved friends, and I would feel so open. And then I would very consciously look across, stop at the Buddha, and look at these two men, these pictures of these two men, and watch what happened. This shrinking, this contraction, this emergence of hatred. And I did that long enough that I discovered that I could stay open in love and compassion and equanimity on both polarities. Now, I did do the little bit that I could do in terms of writing letters and calling my congressman and so on. I did have some activism component of my life, but I also stopped being upset. And there's ample opportunities now to with the affront to sanity that's daily, to practice in such a way that we don't go on the ride, that we don't we don't have to go crazy or set off our anxiety disorder or depression or trigger ourselves into a drug and alcohol relapse, because we learn how to stay balanced in the face of the world, the roller coaster of life. So, last paragraph. Equanimity is the crown and culmination of the four sublime states, the Brahma Viharas. But this should not be understood to mean that equanimity is the negation of love, compassion, and sympathetic joy, or that it leaves them behind as inferior. Far from that, equanimity includes and pervades them fully, just as they fully pervade perfect equanimity. And then there's one other thread of the Buddhist path I want to sketch for you. We talk about mental factors. Mindfulness, for instance, or the 5 hindrances are mental factors. Craving, desire, aversion, restlessness, agitation and worry, sloth and torpor, dullness, doubt. And then there's energy and 52 mental states in the Theravadan model. Now, are there really 52 separate things? I don't think so. There's one thing, which is consciousness. But we can tease it apart into with different concepts, and they're all speaking of the same experience, but they have different dimensions of it. So, and this is a whole other Dharma talk, or 10 or 7. Equanimity shows itself here in the 7 enlightenment factors. The 7 factors that are developed by the practice of awakening, the practice of mindfulness, and they manifest in 7 different colors, sort of. So the first is mindfulness, awakeness, awareness of what is. The second is curiosity. Curious, what is going on here? This is the scientist, explorer, artist of us, that we're really curious about what's happening in the mind. And it's one of the ways meditators get very weird, and they need meditator friends, because with some people you go up to them and say, I was meditating this morning and I was observing, I had this whole attack of I felt anger and hatred, and then it passed away, and then I was feeling loving, and people start shaking their head and their eyes roll. It's like, this person's nuts. Certainly narcissistic, is talking about their own mental states. So, mindfulness, curiosity, energy or persistence, a kind of effort that we need. And then there's joy or bliss or delight or piti, body sensations of delight. And then we have concentration, which is the mind's ability to focus on one thing at a time. Tranquility, a mind which gets quiet. And equanimity, a mind which can be present with whichever end of the pleasure, pain, gain, loss scale things are at. And so in order to balance the mind and move into the kind of balance that can lead to moments of great deep understanding, equanimity is essential. It's part of the fabric of it. And then lastly, having equanimity doesn't mean you don't get freaked out. Having equanimity doesn't mean you don't get angry. It doesn't mean you don't experience despair. Those phenomena arise, they're part of the vicissitudes, pleasure, pain, and so on. But it gets so that we can experience them and not try to get rid of them, but realize what they are is that they're impersonal karmic, they're formations coming out of our karmic past, and then they disappear. So there's a quality of violence, self-violence that we avoid if we understand equanimity to mean, hang on, come back. Where'd it go? This being human is a guest house. Every morning there's a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. The dark shot, the dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. So it's not like we're going to become flat human beings and finally get rid of our neurotic patterns. That's been a hard one for me to let go. I really believed for a long time that I was going to do enough therapy and meditation that I'd just be blissful all the time. It turns out that little abandoned Bobby still is around. But he can come and go with much greater ease because I don't have to take him so seriously. I don't have to fight with him or feel sorry for him. It's just, well, that's that. This is the way of the world. So just let me read the last line of this for fun. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Everything is, when seen through these lenses, everything is pointing this way home. This way home. And it's right here in the present moment. Opening to this moment with equanimity. So thank you for listening. It really is a privilege to be able to play this role. I couldn't play it without you. And I always try to listen. And sometimes I learn something new when these Dharma talks are happening. So I'm open to your questions and comments. Is there anything from this that has sparked something? And also open to any sharing of how you are riding the vicissitudes of this time and your life. And if you wish to speak, simply unmute yourself and then you'll be here, front and center. And something that some of you, those of you that are on computers, I like to do this. I set my screen to speaker view, and then when someone speaks, boom, they are the whole screen.
Hi, Robert. This is Larry.
Larry, hello.
Hello. Well, I have a question for you about joy and bliss. It seems to me that from my own experience with meditation, I can see so easily the development of mindfulness and curiosity, concentration, tranquility, equanimity, and it seems that the joy and the bliss, I get the view of them. They come and they go, and they're wonderful when they're there. But I've been waiting for the longest time to feel that joy and bliss were just increasing throughout my life, that I could, in a steady kind of progression, so that I could look back 5 years ago and say, well, I am definitely happier now than I was 5 years ago. There's definitely more bliss and more joy. But that has not been true. It seems that they are stubbornly resistant to appearing in a steady sort of way. I'm wondering if you have any comment about that. Sometimes it almost makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong. I don't know.
Well, Larry, I knew it would come to this. And I just have to tell you that you're a bad person. It's just... No, I'm actually thinking, there's a bad joke about someone that in the end God says, you just piss me off. But that's a very interesting question. I mean, there is no predicting how our lives are going to go. And I mean, imagine, not too fully, but imagine if we were in Syria and over the last 5 years we've been trying to practice, and our practice has been one of just trying to survive. Chances are our bliss and joy would not be developing tremendously. So, my experience is that bliss and joy are also, they're all temporary. All these states come and go. Mindfulness comes and goes. And that there is in myself, over days, weeks, years, there has been a movement toward more quiet joy, more a sense of things are really okay, or I can live with this without being in anguish, and that really has grown over years. And I want to ask you, is that perhaps the case? There's more balance. There's more. It's not the I'm joyful and I want to dance, but it's right. It's like this.
Well, definitely that sense of equanimity. That was one of the first markers when I started mindfulness meditation that I thought this is really good and useful. So absolutely, equanimity, stronger and stronger, and that has been such a huge value to my life. But I guess I'm still just looking for it. I know that all emotions come and go, so I don't expect to have a big laughing smile on my face all the time. But I think I'm just looking for a lightening of spirit, just a sense that life is pleasurable, there's some joyfulness to being here. That seems a little too thin to me. It comes and it goes. I just want it to be a little bit more solid background experience.
Maybe joy isn't the best translation even. With the development of concentration, which is something that happens over time, when the mind falls into concentration and the hindrances are suppressed or absent, there is a kind of delight, which is a meditative phenomenon. It's a mind phenomenon, a lightness of heart, and really a great ease, because the vicissitudes have ceased to exist in the mind at that time. There's just concentration, and when concentration really begins to emerge, and I imagine you've experienced this, there are sometimes rushes of feelings in the body, like it's called Beatty. And it's I get PT also when I see a parent being really sweet to a child or something, or a beautiful sunset. Sometimes there's this rush through of a feeling. That's one of the meanings of that term joy.
Yes.
And the world, I want to be careful saying this, there's a term, I should look it up. There's a term that's translated as world weariness, which can emerge as our practice goes deeper and we realize that for instance, the joy and the delight and so on that we really want from life isn't that common. And we start seeking a quality of, for better words, joy, equanimity, all these terms. We start seeking it inwardly rather than outwardly. And outwardly, life can stay, and sometimes it's just pretty darn crappy. And yet, in meditation, one can find some moments or longer when the mind gets quieter and quieter, and there's concentration, and there's the quality of bliss, which is inner generated, not outer generated. That making sense?
It is, and I definitely experienced that as a part of meditation, that joy and the bliss. But I just want that to come out of meditation and to permeate my life more. And something distinct from just the ability to bear with suffering. I'm definitely getting stronger in that. I can persist and persevere and look at suffering, and I'm okay, better than I used to be. Okay, looking at suffering, but just waiting for, I guess, a lightness. I want there to be, and I've heard some people say, I think the ancient Egyptians said that the goal was to make your heart as light as a feather before you died. And I thought, when I read that, I thought, oh, that's a nice goal. I'd like to, would like to feel something about lightness of a feather before I go.
It could be a trap. Now, I have a goal to be as light as a feather, and I'm not there, damn it. Well, thank you for that question. I hope our chewing on it is helpful.
It is, absolutely.
How's your writing going?
Oh, not writing much. I'm trying to get into some inquiry. I think the curiosity might be a liberating factor too, because for the first time I feel willing to just kind of journal a little bit and look at some patterns in my own mind, and it's been very interesting.
Great, thank you. You know, I have another thing I want to say, which is, I don't know why. I have hypotheses why, but my personality pulls toward depression. I was depressed for a lot of my life. I smoked weed for probably close to a decade because I needed something, and I didn't know that I was using it for that purpose. But then when I stopped, I had my son, and I really didn't want to be always being intoxicated. And when I stopped, I discovered I was really depressed. And that's when I got into therapy. And then I took antidepressants for a decade, and they were very helpful for their time. But there's still a pull in my personality toward heaviness and depression. And some would say, well, coming out of my childhood with the biochemical loading, the context in which I lived, my personality is prone to that. But I don't live there anymore. I don't live, I have, it's present. And sometimes I'll fall in there for a little while, but when I get really tired or something. But the self-righting mechanism is more toward equanimity and a sense of the beauty of the world sometimes. So I think we're also dealing with our personalities. And to the degree we take them as self, there's work to do there. I hear a voice.
Yes, my name is Trina, and can you hear me okay?
I can now, yeah.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to first thank you for this really wonderful and enriching talk about the 4 adventure goals. And what really resonated with me when you were talking about equanimity was just coming to terms with the suffering that we see. And I recall the time when I was really suffering seeing the people who I care about, as they were the loved ones who had a family member or had someone who had addiction. And, I think for me it was, I felt like I could feel their suffering for a while, and it put me at such a restless state, knowing that I had no hand in helping this, this matter. And I sat with that through so many insight retreats. And so when you said that this is the way of the world, when I finally came to a place of peace with that, I think there was just equanimity that arises when there is acceptance and really deconstructing what was it about this that was causing me suffering. It was, realizing my attachment to wanting them to be free of their suffering, wanting them to have ease, and wanting them probably not to be there in their lives. So when I realized that, I'm attached to, a certain result for them, that, in reality is not going to happen. There was, in Vietnamese, there's the term, and in English it's translated to mere recognition. So just mere recognition of what is, and that this is all part of the human experience. And so when we talk about equanimity in the sense about the unshakable mind, and and this is the way of the world, I really got that. And I felt when I can see suffering and be there, be present, with the other person, but not let it, consume me. And just holding that thought, the remembering of that has really helped me deeply. So thank you for, just that teaching and, rehydrating that in me.
Thank you. I remembered something as you were speaking. I worked in a residential treatment program, drug and alcohol treatment, and for years. And I learned a lot of definitions of codependency, some of them very articulate. People have done PhD theses. The only one that stuck was this. A codependent is a person who, when she falls off a cliff, someone else's life flashes before her eyes. That we're so toiling about their suffering that we forget, it's not me. It's so lovely insight. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to your class.
You're going to do the Eightfold Path? Good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a fine one.
Wonderful.
I'm a little disappointed right now in that I just looked at my little thumbnail and this shirt looks light blue. It's not light blue, it's a mauve. It's a beautiful, like an orchid color, and the computer completely distorts it. Crushing. I picked it out specially.
Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Sangha. It's Jessica.
Hello, Jessica.
I, for some reason, just when Larry was talking, and it really struck me, and I don't think this is necessarily like a solution or a strategy. Well, maybe it's a strategy. But one of the things, and I can't recall which retreat I picked it up from, was the idea of sense and savor as part of a walking meditation. And actually, it might have been during Doyle's NVC class. And maybe that was it. But the idea is that not so much about just sensing and savoring the beautiful, which is my preference, but just when I'm doing a walk, or even I'm just out and about, really trying to take in and sense what's there before me, and then savor whatever it is. And I found that, interestingly, things that might, on first blush, be annoying or grotesque or whatever they are, I've had this much greater ability to just take it in and appreciate that it's life revealing itself however it's revealing itself.
Beautiful.
So I wish I could remember and give thanks to wherever I came or heard that. But I love it as a practice, and I try to remember that just kind of daily, which is just sense and savor, whatever it is. So I just shared that.
It sounds like an intentional willingness to be present with what is. And incidentally, in passing, thank you for your wonderful work around the center. It looks really, the garden out front in particular looks just gorgeous. Thanks. Well, we have time for another person. If you'd like to share. It's after 12 already. How did that happen?
Hi, Robert. It's Martha.
Hello, Martha.
Hello. I just want to thank you for that Dharma talk. It was really helpful for me. I've been just swirling around with anxiety and anger with the state of the world and some things that we've been working on here, and a lot of self-judgment around my anger. And it's really helpful to kind of realize it's part of the human condition and kind of riding through it. And that it's something, it was just right. So thank you.
So I'm hearing you validating your reactions to things. You don't have to make yourself wrong and bad because you're having the reaction you're having.
Yeah, and I have to constantly remind myself of that, and somehow knowing that, just being reminded that it's not just me is really helpful.
It's not just you. And in terms of the world around us, there are horrors happening around us. And so, of course, to have reactions is normal for us. But how to not get caught in them for too long, that's how to set ourselves free. But if we criticize ourselves for our reaction, there's no way to heal. Right? Because then the reaction is having a battle with another part of us. Whereas if we can move into, it's like this. This is how my particular structure conditioning responds to this. And I love myself. That's a big pill, isn't it?
It is.
I aspire to love myself exactly as I am in this moment. It's a big horse pill. It's about this big. Anybody? Last person?
Robert, it's Candle.
Candle, hello.
Oh, I want to thank you for playing breathing in, breathing out. I had to chuckle because while you were playing that, you were looking for the announcement for tonight. And in my women's group in Hawaii, and I think Jai is in our circle here today, that was the song we sang every time at the end of our circle, or sometimes in the beginning. And I really, really liked hearing it sung because I just figured it out from the book that I had that had the notes. I'd never heard it actually. So thank you. And thank you for a lovely talk today on equanimity. You really get broad and getting so much information in so much time, even including the 7 factors of enlightenment and everything. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak of your evening this evening, please?
Well, sure. Let's see. It'll be pretty basic, simple, thorough instructions. I'll try not to take up the whole time so that those who like to actually sit quietly can have time to deepen their practice. So it'll be a 45-minute period, which will include a half an hour of sitting and then 15 minutes or so of metta practice. So thank you so much for going over the Brahma Viharas. It'll just lead right into loving kindness tonight. And I chosen on the first 4 sessions to do some of the similes. So tonight we're going to talk about the obstructed stream. And so it'll be one of the similes on water, seeing as how it's very hot and dry here these days. We probably all like to be jumping into a stream, so it's about the purity of the mind. And we'll have discussion and interaction with each other. And if people don't like discussing things and they don't like to get that personal around how their practice is and things, it's fine with me if you want to come, sit, do the loving kindness, and leave early. Some people don't like such a long period. So at any rate, I'm looking forward to seeing whoever comes, old friends and new. 6:30, and I put the link in the chat box there. And of course, it's online in the constant contact that you already showed and has been sent out. So thank you, everybody. It's really nice to see you and sit with you today, too.
Thank you, dear Candle.
You're welcome, dearest Robert.
I so delight in you.
Thank you.
Well, shall we sing ourselves out of here? Let me see. How do I do it? Here we go. Wait. I don't want to do that yet. I want to take a moment to peruse you. Thanks for being here. It's so helpful to gather in community. Do we have any kids? Kids, show yourselves. Young people. Then let's end with an Om instead of our raucous song. So I'm going to unmute all. And I'm going to set a timer for 45 seconds or a minute. So we'll end with a gong. You ready? May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May all beings know happiness and the causes of happiness. And may we all be free from suffering. Thank you, dear friends. Have a wonderful day. See you soon, I hope. Tomorrow morning at 7.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, goodbye, Rebecca.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Alicia.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, dear Alicia. Goodbye, Linda Bud and Cameron and Lou and Susan and Michael and Lisa. Bye-bye. Ending now. Goodbye, friends on YouTube. Sure hope it worked. And Facebook.